Jerry Hepburn. I'm a clocksmith. I'm from Harrison, Maine. I've been working on clocks since 1968. This is a tall clock from Pennsylvania. Somewhere between Reading, Pennsylvania and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, this one was built back around 1815, 1820. That particular dial is probably the most striking dial of any of the Pennsylvania clocks that I've ever had or seen. And this one came to me from an estate in Portland. Cherry case, figural cherry door, hand-carved rosettes. The rosettes are those little things up there. This particular clock has 4 finials, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and it also has 4 pillars, 2 in the front, flanking the door, and 2 in the back. Windows on the side of the hood so that you can observe the movement. This is called the plinth, and on the plinth it has reeded corner columns as well as reeded corner columns on the trunk of the case. In the middle of the plinth, they call this a turtle-shaped panel, and I have not been able to identify who exactly made this clock, but I have been able to identify the area in which it was made. This dial has a moon dial in it, or moon disc, and that tells you where the moon is at any particular day. And of course the moon phases every 29 and a half days. That's why this figure only goes up to 29 and a half. As you rotate it, you would see the moons start to advance into full moon. Then it shows a cottage, and then it comes around to another moon again until it finally comes back to the ship. Flying the American flag. These are called spandrels, and they're just so dynamic on this dial. Little globes that kind of hide the moons as they go around, and they're North America and Africa and the Indian Ocean and that part of the world. These numbers around the outside are telling you that it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and so on, till you get up to 60 minutes. This particular pointer points to the seconds. See it go as the clock's running. So I'll advance the minute hand, and it'll put pressure on it so that movement's actually showing you the seconds. And I did that actually to get to this little guy right down here. This little crescent cutout is the calendar, and that shows you the days of the month. And that advances one time, once a day. So a really, really fantastic clock, all in all. In one of the most beautiful cherry cases that I've ever owned. This guy right here is a French clock, Art Nouveau, 8-day time and strike movement in a cast bronze case that's signed. Quite a rare clock. Chimes on the hour and a half hour on a little bell. Wonderful, wonderful movement. They're really high-grade movements. This clock in back, another really, really nice clock. Wooden movement, which means all the gears are wood and the plates are wood, unlike the one that I took apart. Carved splat, pineapple finials, carved half columns with pawl feet. Reverse painting on glass, and that's referred to as a tablet. The dial is an exceptional dial with wonderful floral rosettes with a gold field, and then floral wreath in the interior of the chapter ring. This is the chapter ring. Clock is from, this particular clock is from around 1830. This clock right here is probably from around 1915. So you have quite a variety, quite a span of time between those two particular clocks. But this one's a more exceptional type of clock or grade of clock, because a lot of these transitional clocks didn't have all of the embellishments that this clock has. They might have had palmed feet, but they might have had just stenciled columns and a stenciled splat with rather plain finials. This one's an exceptional model. This is a rare clock. It was done by Asa Wilkins of Wiscasset, Maine. He was only in Wiscasset for 4, perhaps 5 years before he moved to Providence, Rhode Island. In 1810, 1815, the makers of these only did them according to orders that they have. So we assume that this probably is one of maybe a dozen that this clockmaker actually produced in Wiscasset. This one has the moon dial. Let me open this up. The moon disc with a man of war ship flying the American flag. This clock, as I had said, was probably from around 1810, 1815 at the latest. But in each quadrant, there's a different scene. You come up to the moon, where it's in its full phase, and as it wanes, it goes down until it's completed its cycle in 29 and a half days, where it shows the village or a little house or something like that. They're all a little different because they're all hand painted. They're all one of a kind. They're absolutely works of art. Now we came to the next moon, and when it's now back to its ship. This small disc shows the seconds. Each time it counts off a second, and then the hand moves. This a little cutout right here shows you the days of the month, and that changes, and that's trying to change right now, so I can't advance that. But that particular one advances once a day. Spandrels are gold with floral, very pretty. The clock itself is in I believe a cherry case, in what they refer to as the Roxbury style case. This style was developed in Roxbury, Boston area, back in late 1700s, early 1800s. And because of its popularity, moved all through New England. Note the boldness of the fully reeded columns that flank the door, and then it carries on down to the quarter columns that are reeded with the brass inlays, which is typical of a Roxbury style case. Many of the features of this clock are typical of clocks from the Augusta area and the mid-coast area of Maine during that time. Wilkins is a rare one. Wingate was a lot more prominent. He made a lot more clocks. Frederick Wingate, he was out of Augusta. Benjamin Snow, he was another one out of Augusta. A lot of their cases have a lot of similarities because of the fact that they're all from that same area. This clock, again, has a lot of rare features in it. This one's from England. This one was made by a fellow named Redford out of Leeds, England. It's, again, basically the same as the one by Wilkins. Has an 8-day brass movement, weight driven, and it has all of the features except for the moon phase. This is a brass dial with cast brass applied spandrels of cherubs. The boss is the sun, and these are silver plated. And the one feature with this clock, not typical of any other clock that I've ever had, quite frankly, or have ever appraised or worked on, is the size of the calendar. It's silver also. It's a silver disc that will move according to each day. So silver chapter ring, silver boss, and silver date discs makes this a rather rare clock. This one's from around 1760. This is quite early. And then all of the engraving in here is quite nice. It sets it off. And then you have like sea monsters. This clock is primarily oak with a lot of mahogany inlays and veneers. Mahogany banding. Wonderful clock. This is a rare clock too. This is an American clock. Silas Hoadley. This one is from somewhere between 1813 and 1815. And I know that because of the way it's signed. Silas Hoadley and Seth Thomas were partners, or were workers for the Eli Terry Clock Company. And in 1810, Hoadley and Thomas bought out the Terry Clock Company, which was in Plymouth, Connecticut. Most of the clocks that they made, and all of the clocks that they made, were wooden movements. Most of them were 30-hour pull-up clocks. And I'll show you pull-up that's the way you get the weights up. You pull on this string and the weights go up. This one is an 8-day wooden movement clock. Rather scarce. You don't have a lot of 8-day wooden movement clocks. Most of all the wooden movement clocks that I have in here, except for this one, are 30-hour clocks. This is 8-day. This is in a pine case that probably was refinished 50, 75 years ago. It has the original, what they call fretwork, bold columns, pewter hands, and the whole thing is interesting in it has kind of a Rufus Porter type of painting under the hands. And I wish I think I'm going to advance this, because I want you to see the musical motif that's it's under the chapter ring in the middle, just above the hands. I don't see that very often in any clocks, whether it's a wooden movement clock or an 8-day brass clock. Dials are wood, hand painted. All of the spandrels and everything are hand painted in. This again is a fairly rare clock. This is a Southern clock. Baltimore, Richmond, somewhere in that area. And one of the most unusual features of this, beautiful wooden case, stained maple. This is 8-day, and this is driven by cast iron weights. The weights that you saw in the last clock, they were tin can weights. They're tin cans that were made up only in New England, or northern New England, and filled with stones and lead and all kinds of other things. These are cast iron weights, and with a full-length pendulum. 8-day clock. The dial is typical of an 8-day dial from that period. Not as flamboyant as some of the others, but it has wonderful little hand-painted flowers in the spandrels. The rarity in this clock is this guy up here. It's the only movement that I've ever seen that has a man in one of the quadrants as opposed to a ship or a village. And we believe that this guy was probably ordered by the plantation owner, I'm assuming, and that's him with his drink in one hand and his sword in the other hand, a full plumed hat, and his little blue jacket. Quite unusual.
So it's a custom-made clock to the owner's likeness.
They're all of these clocks are custom made. None of these were mass produced, other than there was some mass production that went on with the wooden movement clocks. There's the moon. And we go to a wonderful little village with a man in a boat and a cottage on the edge of the lake. And then we go back to the moon again. And then to our, I don't know if you can see the wonderful plumage on the top of that velvet hat that he's wearing. His jacket is probably velvet as well. 8-day brass movement, bell strike. The hands on this type of clock are all hand-cut steel. None of them are stamped out like they would be today. These are all hand-cut. The case itself is beautifully restored and features wonderful inlay in the door that follows through the waist door, and then quarter fans in the corners of the door with a wonderful little oval fan inlay in the center, and that all follows down into the plinth, which is the base, and that shows a round fan with the corner fans and that checkered inlay border. Carved are reeded corner columns with brass capitals. This clock also was built somewhere around 1815-ish, 1810, 1820. One of the other outstanding features of this case is the really, really bold molding in the broken arch. This particular model is called a broken arch in the hood with carved rosettes to finish off the, some people call it a swan's neck, but the proper term is broken arch. But if you see some of the other clocks here in the gallery, none of them have the bold molded broken arch that this one has. Unbelievable. This is a gorgeous clock. I restored this and it's in excellent running condition. This was toward the end of when they were using brass dials. By around 1790, 1795, they went to the painted iron dials, which is what you've seen in all of the other clocks except for the wooden movement one. That was a painted wooden dial. This is a brass dial, as well as the one that from 1760 that we did. Brass dial, brass chapter ring, cast brass spandrels in the corners, and then the dolphins or the sea monsters in the cast brass embellishments in the arch. The boss is brass with the name of the maker, Joseph Atkinson from Gateshead in Ireland. The case, there's nothing much different about this brass movement clock, 8-day, that is in most other clocks. What makes this clock so unusual is all of the hand carving. This entire case is hand carved. Pears and leaves and wheat and this is obviously considered a flat top. But up in the upper part of the hood, typical reeded columns that flank the door. Look at all the carving down around the door. Just amazing. Once you get down into the trunk, there's the carving of a head in the center with kind of a leaf type of design and then flowers underneath. And that continues down into the plinth. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I look forward to your comments.